Have you ever been just 1 week after getting paid and already had to use a credit card with predatory interest rates or call a family member to borrow money? If not, congratulations, you are an excellent salary manager. If this happens to you occasionally or frequently, then you are in the group of 80% of people who will struggle when they retire. But that's okay. I am here and I am going to talk about the things I have done every single time I received my paycheck since I was 20 years old, which is exactly what helped me become the first millionaire in my family. Before I tell you those things, I will tell you about a conversation between me and my nephew. His name is Nick, 30 years old, who called me in the middle of last month. And of course, it wasn't to check in on me, it was to borrow money. I knew for sure that he had received his salary less than 1 week earlier. Instead of transferring money like every other time, I asked a question I had never asked before. Where did your salary go? He said, I don't really know. The moment I receive my paycheck, the money seems to disappear. Yes, that is terrifying. With more than 20 years working in finance, I knew exactly what to ask next. Before payday arrived, what was the first thing you thought about? He hesitated, then explained. Thinking about which bar to go to with friends on the night he got paid. Whether he should buy the latest tech gadget that just came out. And if he didn't have enough money, then paying in installments would be fine. Those decisions happened before the salary ever reached his bank account. Terrifying, isn't it? Yes, money doesn't disappear after you get paid. Its fate was decided before payday ever arrived. That was when I reached back into my memory and pulled out the 6 steps that I methodically followed from the very first paycheck I earned at age 20. The way I have applied them consistently until today as a habit is what has built me millions of dollars. I taught them to my nephew, and now I will tell you. If you do this correctly, then 10 to 20 years from now, you will not have to call anyone in the middle of the month to ask to borrow money anymore, nor will you need to use credit cards sharp as razor blades. The first step in how you use your paycheck may not sound exciting, but it is the foundation of everything that comes after in your financial future. Before you think about saving, investing, or building wealth, you need to make sure of one basic thing: your financial system is not leaking. And the biggest, most common, and most overlooked leak is debt. We are talking about credit card debt, student loans, car loans, and buy now, pay later obligations. No one likes to talk about debt, but debt does not care whether you like it or not. If you ignore it, it will quietly erode every other financial effort you make. This is the mistake so many people fall into. They think that as long as they earn more money or invest correctly, the debt will eventually disappear on its own. But the reality is that debt does not disappear when you get better at making money. It only disappears when you control it properly. At this stage, your goal is not to pay off all debt as fast as possible. Your goal is to prevent debt from breaking the system. That means after every paycheck, what you need to do is make the minimum payments on all debts on time. You do not need to pay extra if you are not ready. You do not need to force yourself into a miserable lifestyle just to wipe it out. You just need to be on time. The reason lies in how the credit system works. Your credit score is not built on how smart you are, but on how reliable you are. The two most important factors affecting your credit score are payment history and total debt balance. These two factors alone account for roughly 70% of your entire credit score. That means as long as you pay on time and keep your debt within a controllable range, you are already doing most of the work correctly. You do not need to be a financial expert. You just need to avoid basic mistakes. One late payment can stay on your credit report for many years. And when your credit score is low, everything in your financial life becomes more expensive. Buying a home becomes more expensive. Buying a car becomes more expensive. Insurance becomes more expensive. Even certain career opportunities can be affected. This is why step 1 is not the step that makes you rich. It is the step that keeps you from dragging yourself down. Think of this phase as keeping the boat from having holes in the bottom. You do not need to row fast yet, but only if the boat is intact can you travel far. And only when the system is no longer leaking do the next steps, like building an emergency fund and investing, truly start to work. After you have made sure that debt is no longer breaking the system, the next step is not investing or optimizing returns. The next step is creating a safety zone large enough that you no longer have to make decisions in a state of panic. This is where the emergency fund comes in, and many people completely misunderstand its purpose. An emergency fund is not meant to make you richer. It does not generate high returns. It does not make you feel like you are moving fast. But it does something far more important. It changes how your brain operates when something goes wrong. When you have no backup money, every small problem feels like a crisis. An unexpected bill, a broken car, a temporary job loss, one unpaid sick week. In that state, you do not think long term, you only react. And financial decisions made in survival mode are almost always bad decisions. That is why an emergency fund should be built before you pour all your energy into investing. But here's the point I want you to understand very clearly. You do not need to have 3 to 6 months of living expenses immediately to start a stable financial life. That is the final goal, not the starting line. If you try to force all your extra money each month just to hit that number, there is a high chance you will burn out and quit halfway. And that is exactly how most people fail. Instead, do this systematically. Every paycheck transfer about 10% of your net income into a separate account dedicated to your emergency fund. Not an investment account, not an account that is easy to spend from, a place you do not touch unless you truly need it. This money does not need to grow. Its only job is to exist. At first, you will not feel much change. A few $1,000s in an account does not make life look more glamorous. But the first change does not show up on the balance sheet. It shows up in your head. You start sleeping better, you check your bank account less often. You no longer feel like one email from the bank can ruin your entire week. When this fund reaches about 1 month of living expenses, you will notice something interesting. You start making decisions more slowly, more calmly, more strategically, and only then does money truly begin to work for you. An emergency fund does not help you beat the market. It helps you avoid getting kicked out of the game when the market or life goes against your plan. This is the buffer between you and stupid decisions. And the thicker this buffer is, the more likely you are to play the long financial game. Keeping the system from breaking is step 1. Creating a safety zone so you do not panic is step 2. And only when these 2 steps are solid do we talk about making money grow. When you have kept the system from breaking and built a safety zone strong enough to prevent panic, only then are you qualified to step into investing. Not because you are smarter, but because you are stable enough not to sabotage yourself. This is where many people make mistakes. They think investing is a game of picking the right stock, the right timing, the right trend. They spend hours reading news, watching charts, tracking markets. But the truth is that most long-term returns do not come from being smarter than the market. They come from staying in the market long enough. Compound interest does not reward the smartest person. It rewards the most patient one. And this is your greatest advantage if you are in your 20s or 25. Not your salary, not a large amount of capital, but time. If you are 20 years old, you have roughly 47 years before reaching traditional retirement age. Those 47 years matter more than any clever investment you can think of. That is why in this step, you do not need to invest a lot. You only need to invest early and consistently. A reasonable number at this stage is about 10% of your income each paycheck. Not investing only when there is money left over, but investing like a fixed bill. This amount does not need to be large, but it must enter the market as early as possible. And instead of trying to beat the market, you should do the opposite. Let the market work for you. The reality is that about 95% of individual investors fail to beat the market over the long term. This includes many professionally managed funds with analyst teams and powerful AI tools. If they cannot do it, believing that you will do better just by watching a few videos or reading a few articles is a dangerous illusion. That is why index funds should be your first foundation. Simple, low cost, and they do not require you to be smart every day. You do not need to check your investment app every morning. You do not need to react to the news. You only need a system that automatically puts money into the market consistently, regardless of how you feel that day. This is not passive investing. This is investing against human nature. When everything goes up, you still buy. When the market goes down, you still buy. When everyone panics, your system keeps running. That is how compound interest truly unleashes its power. This does not mean you can never invest in individual stocks, but individual stocks should only appear after you already have a solid foundation. If you have seriously followed the market for 3 to 5 years, if you understand businesses' cash flow and risk, you can allocate a small portion, around 5%, to test higher growth opportunities. History shows us that there are super growth stocks that rise 500%, 1,000% in a short period of 1 to 2 years. I repeat, you should only participate in individual stock investing after you have enough knowledge and enough time observing the market. Coming back to the core, the rest of your portfolio must be built so that it does not require you to be smart every day. Compound interest only needs one thing to work: time. And every year you delay starting is a year you will never get back. You do not need to start perfectly. You only need to start early. Protect the system. Build the safety zone and let time do the heaviest work for you. At this point, many people start to feel like they are doing things right. They are paying their debts on time. They have an emergency fund. They have started investing consistently. And this is exactly when a subtle mistake often appears. They allow high interest debt to linger too long because they believe they are already okay. But the truth is, there is no such thing as okay when you are paying 15, 20, or 25% interest per year. These debts do not just take your money, they take your time. Compound interest has two sides. One side builds wealth, the other destroys it. And high interest debt is compound interest working against you. That is why, after you have a safety zone and a functioning investment system, the next priority is to eliminate debts with interest rates above roughly 15%. Not because of emotion, but because of math. Paying off a 20% credit card debt is equivalent to earning a guaranteed 20% return with no risk and no taxes. There is no investment strategy out there that can reliably give you that. And now we come to the two most common strategies. The first is the avalanche method. You list all your debts, sort them by interest rate from highest to lowest. You pay the minimum on all of them, and you direct all extra money toward the highest interest debt. This is the most financially optimal method. You pay the least interest, you get out of debt the fastest, you save the most money in the long run. But here's where math does not always win. The second strategy is the snowball method. You sort debts by balance from smallest to largest. You pay off the small ones first to create a sense of victory. Mathematically, this method is less efficient, but psychologically, it is extremely powerful. Many people do not fail because they lack the right formula. They fail because they cannot endure the process. If you are someone who gets discouraged easily, quits easily, or has failed many times at paying off debt, then Snowball may be the better choice. Not because it is smarter, but because it keeps you in the game. The worst approach is not choosing the wrong method. The worst approach is choosing nothing at all. There's one more crucial point you need to understand clearly. Not all debt is bad. Low interest debt, roughly below 4 to 6%, such as certain student loans or mortgages, does not necessarily need to be rushed. In many cases, you can pay those debts while investing at the same time. But high interest debt is not negotiable. It does not give you time. It does not give you opportunities. Every month you delay, you are transferring money from your future to someone else's present. That is why I advised my nephew to choose the avalanche method. Not because it is easy, but because it is decisive. This step does not feel exciting. It does not come with pretty charts. There are no quick success stories. But when the last high-interest debt disappears, you will feel something very clearly. Your financial traction increases. The money you earn starts staying with you. And only then do the next steps truly accelerate. By this point, most people who watch content like this tend to make the same mistake. They think they need to be smarter. Follow the market more closely. Make better decisions. But the truth is the opposite. People who build significant wealth are not the ones who make more decisions. They are the ones who make fewer decisions, but each one is structurally correct. And this is where you begin playing a different game. It is no longer about how to earn a few extra percentage points. It becomes how to keep more money after taxes and avoid breaking the system with emotions. If you are in the United States and in your early to mid 20s, this is a massive advantage because you have something older people do not: time. And the best, simplest, most overlooked tool for leveraging time is the Roth IRA. The principle behind a Roth IRA is very simple. You pay taxes up front, and then all growth over the next 30 to 40 years is tax-free, not tax-deferred, not tax-reduced, but tax-free. This is incredibly important for young people because there is a high chance you are currently in a lower tax bracket than your future self. You are paying taxes at the lowest rate of your lifetime. A Roth IRA is not a place to experiment, not a place to beat the market. It is where you build your financial backbone. And because of that, what you put into it should reflect that mindset. Not complex, not flashy, not something you need to monitor every day. One or two low-cost index funds tracking the total market or the S&P 500 is more than enough for 90 to 95% of people. Many people find this approach boring, but the boredom is exactly the advantage. Because when there is nothing to do, there is also nothing to mess up. This is the core of autopilot. The money does not pass through your hands. It does not wait for your decision. It does not ask for your emotional input on a red market day. It automatically leaves your account and automatically starts working. When you set up monthly auto investing, you remove one of the biggest enemies of investing: yourself. Not because you are unintelligent, but because you are human. Humans react, systems do not. A person who invests $400 per month starting at age 25, roughly 10% of income, never increases that amount, never picks individual stocks, never tries to be smart, can still end up with over $2 million in a Roth IRA by retirement. Not because they're great, but because they do not interfere. This is the difference between people who know a lot and people who go far. One spends energy thinking, the other spends energy designing systems. When you optimize taxes and turn on autopilot, you enter a new phase. Money is no longer something that requires constant supervision. It becomes a background process, like breathing. And interestingly, when money no longer occupies your mind every day, you begin to have space to focus on things that create much greater leverage. That is when we move to the next step. No longer just money in an account, but the ability to create money. If you are ready, I will continue with the final step. By this step, you have done what most people never manage to do. You are no longer living in firefighting mode. You have a safety zone. You have an automated investment system. You no longer need to think every month about where your money is going. And precisely because of that, this is where the game changes. From here on, the question is no longer, how do I avoid losing money? But instead, how do I earn more money each year without working twice as hard? This is where income leverage enters. There is one truth many people do not like to hear. You cannot save your way to wealth. You can only invest well and earn more to become wealthy. And if you look at the data on self-made wealthy individuals, one common pattern appears very clearly. Most of them do not have a single income stream. They have at least three. Not because they're greedy, but because they understand risk. One income stream is fragile. Two income streams are more stable. Three or more income streams create freedom of choice. Step 6 does not require you to quit your job. It does not require you to stay up late and wake up early to work 2 full-time jobs. And it certainly does not require you to blindly follow your passion. It requires you to do one very specific thing: turn your spare time, existing skills, or curiosity into income-producing assets. And 2026 is the best time in modern history to do this. Not because everything is easy, but because leverage has been democratized. In the past, to create additional income, you needed capital, or connections, or degrees. Today, you need a laptop, internet, and the ability to learn faster than average. AI does not replace you. AI replaces people who do not use AI. This opens up a new reality. A single individual can now create as much value as a small team could 10 years ago. Freelancing is no longer side work. Content is no longer a risky career. Online business is no longer a scam. Oh, they become income leverage if approached correctly. The key point is this: a side hustle is not for spending. A side hustle is to feed the system. Extra income is not for upgrading your lifestyle, it loops back into the earlier steps. It helps you accelerate debt payoff, speed up investment growth, and shorten the time needed to hit financial milestones. This is where many people shoot themselves in the foot. They earn an extra $2,000 to $3,000 per month and immediately upgrade their car, their home, their vacations. The result, they work more. But the system stays the same. People who do it right do the opposite. They use extra income to buy back future time. A good side hustle does not need to be grand. It needs three things. First, it can start small. Second, it can scale. Third, it does not require your constant presence. It could be freelance skills, trust-based content, digital products, REIs, or online services. It does not matter which one you choose. What matters is that you understand its role in the system. It is not your identity. It is a tool. And here is the mindset very few people adopt. You do not need a side hustle forever. You need it long enough to reach critical mass, just like investing. You do not need compound interest forever to see results. You need it to pass the inflection point. When your side income reaches the point where it can sustain itself, you unlock a new level. At that moment, every financial decision becomes lighter. You no longer negotiate out of fear of losing your job. You no longer cling to a bad job just for the money. You have the ability to wait, and that is what money truly buys. Not stuff, but the ability to say no. Step 6 is the shift from defense to offense. But it is a controlled offense, not reckless, not all in, not at the cost of stability, just opening more doors and letting the wind blow in the right direction. When you combine a clear spending system, a thick safety zone, automated investing, and income leverage, you are no longer managing money. You are designing a financial life. And at that point, money starts to grow around you, quietly, without drama, but very sustainably. That is the entire Paycheck Routine 2026. Not flashy, not hype-driven, just a system that even the worst months cannot break. If you do it right long enough, you will no longer need to ask, when will I be okay? One day you will realize you have been okay for a long time already. Of course, I am not a financial advisor, and none of this should be considered financial advice. If you want to see shocking money stats of the average person, you can watch this next video, but do not click it just yet. Remember to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. All right, I will see you there.